Gentlemen, what if I told you that a single natural substance, one that's been used for thousands of years across multiple civilizations, could help improve blood flow, calm inflammation, and support tissue health in some of the most circulation-dependent areas of the male body? Not a pill, not a device, and not something risky or extreme. I'm talking about castor oil. I'm Dr. Aria Brooks. I'm a urologist and intimacy coach, and for over 12 years, I've worked with men who quietly noticed changes, reduced circulation, less sensitivity, tissue stiffness, and a physical response that doesn't feel as reliable as it once did. Most men are told this is just aging, something to accept, something to work around, but in many cases that's simply not true. Castor oil isn't some outdated folk remedy. It's a biologically active substance with very specific properties that modern research is now helping us understand, especially when it comes to inflammation, circulation, lymphatic flow, and tissue health. When used correctly, castor oil can create the right conditions for tissues to heal, regenerate, and respond more effectively, particularly in areas that depend heavily on blood flow and nerve signaling. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. How old are you, and where are you watching from today? Drop your age and location in the comments. It helps men realize they're not alone in this. And if men's health, confidence, and aging well matter to you, make sure you're subscribed. This channel is about honest conversations and practical guidance that actually work. Now, before I explain how castor oil works, you need to understand what's actually changing inside the body over time, because once you understand that, everything else makes sense. Let's start there. To understand why castor oil works, you need to understand what it actually is and why it behaves differently from most oils. Castor oil is extracted from the seeds of the castor plant, a plant that's been cultivated for medicinal use for more than 4,000 years across ancient Egypt, India, China, and parts of Europe. This isn't coincidence. Cultures separated by geography kept returning to the same oil for the same reason. It produced reliable, repeatable effects on tissue healing and circulation. What makes castor oil unique is its fatty acid profile. Nearly 90% of castor oil is composed of a single fatty acid that's rarely found in meaningful amounts anywhere else. That compound gives castor oil three properties that are especially important for male tissue health. First, it has strong anti-inflammatory effects. Low-grade inflammation is one of the most common and overlooked contributors to declining sensitivity, stiffness, and reduced responsiveness in male tissues. Castor oil helps calm that inflammatory signaling at the tissue level, creating an environment where normal function can return. Second, castor oil supports local blood flow. When inflammation decreases, small blood vessels are able to relax and widen more easily, allowing oxygen-rich blood to move into tissues that depend on circulation for firmness and response. And third, this is critical, castor oil penetrates deeply. Most topical substances sit on the surface of the skin. Castor oil is different. Its molecular structure allows it to move through the skin and reach deeper layers, influencing not just the surface, but the underlying tissues, blood vessels, and nerves that determine physical response. This is why men don't just notice cosmetic changes, they notice functional changes. There's one more system castor oil affects that most men have never been taught about: the lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system clears waste, excess fluid, and inflammatory byproducts from tissues. When lymphatic flow becomes sluggish, which often happens with age, sitting, and reduced movement, tissues become congested and less responsive. Castor oil helps stimulate lymphatic drainage, reducing congestion and improving overall tissue health in the pelvic region. When inflammation drops, circulation improves, and drainage clears, tissues are finally able to function the way they were designed to. And this sets the stage for the changes many men begin to notice with consistent use. Next, I want to explain what actually changes inside male tissue when castor oil is used properly, and why those changes matter for firmness, sensitivity, and confidence. Gentlemen, now that you understand what castor oil is, let's talk about what actually happens when it's used consistently, because this is where the benefits stop sounding theoretical and start making sense. The primary active component in castor oil, ricinoleic acid, works on several levels at once. The first is inflammation control. Inside male tissues, especially those with dense blood vessels and nerves, chronic low-grade inflammation quietly interferes with function. It restricts circulation, it dulls nerve signaling, and it alters tissue elasticity over time. Ricinoleic acid has been shown to influence inflammatory pathways that drive this process. When inflammation calms, blood vessels become more responsive, tissues receive better oxygen delivery, and cellular repair can occur more efficiently. The second mechanism is circulation enhancement. Healthy male function depends on rapid changes in blood flow. Small arteries arteries and capillaries must be able to relax and expand quickly. Castor oil supports this by encouraging local vasodilation, meaning those small vessels open more easily, allowing increased blood flow with less resistance. Better circulation means more oxygen, more nutrients, and faster removal of metabolic waste that can otherwise accumulate and impair tissue performance. The third mechanism is tissue penetration. Many topical products never reach the structures that matter most. They sit on the skin and affect appearance, but not function. Castor oil is different. Its molecular structure allows it to move beyond the surface and into deeper layers of tissue, including areas involved in blood flow, nerve signaling, and structural support. This is why its effects aren't limited to comfort or skin quality. They extend to responsiveness and tissue health over time. And finally, castor oil influences lymphatic flow. The lymphatic system clears excess fluid, inflammatory byproduct, and cellular debris. When lymph flow becomes sluggish, which is common with aging and long periods of sitting, tissues become congested and less responsive. Castor oil has long been used to support lymphatic movement. By improving drainage, it helps reduce tissue pressure and restore a healthier internal environment. When you combine reduced inflammation, improved circulation, deeper penetration, and better lymphatic clearance, you create conditions where tissues can recover, not just temporarily respond. This is why many men notice changes not just in performance, but in comfort, sensitivity, and overall tissue quality with consistent use. Now, the next question most men ask is this: what does this actually translate to in real, noticeable changes? And what kinds of improvements can you reasonably expect? That's exactly what we'll cover next. Now, let's talk about what happens at the vascular level, because firmness and physical response are, at their core, circulation events. Male function depends on specialized tissues that must rapidly fill with blood and then hold that blood under pressure. For that to happen, the blood vessels supplying those tissues need to be flexible, responsive, and free from chronic inflammation. Over time, several things interfere with that process. Low-grade inflammation stiffens vessel walls, reduced blood flow limits oxygen delivery, and tissue congestion prevents proper expansion and relaxation. Castor oil supports this process from multiple angles. As inflammation in the tissue decreases, the small arteries and capillaries are able to relax more easily. This allows blood to enter the area with less resistance, which is essential for strong, reliable response. There's also evidence, both clinical and observational, that castor oil supports the health of the connective tissue surrounding these vascular chambers. Healthy connective tissue needs to be elastic. When it becomes stiff or fibrotic, expansion is limited and response weakens. By supporting circulation and reducing inflammatory stress, castor oil helps maintain the flexibility these tissues need to function properly. Another important factor is endothelial health. The endothelium is the thin inner lining of blood vessels. It plays a critical role in releasing signals that tell vessels when to open and relax. Chronic inflammation damages this lining over time, reducing its ability to respond. When that happens, blood flow becomes sluggish and unpredictable. Castor oil's anti-inflammatory effects help restore a healthier environment for endothelial function, allowing blood vessels to respond more naturally again. This is why many men don't just notice changes in appearance. They notice changes in firmness, responsiveness, and consistency. But circulation isn't the only system involved. There's another critical pathway that determines whether these improvements last, and that's the lymphatic system. And that's what we'll talk about next. One of the most overlooked contributors to reduced function in men is lymphatic congestion. The lymphatic system is responsible for clearing inflammatory byproducts, excess fluid, and cellular waste from tissues. Unlike the circulatory system, it doesn't have a pump. It relies on movement, pressure, and healthy tissue tone to function properly. As men age, especially with long periods of sitting and reduced movement, lymphatic flow in the pelvic region can become sluggish. When that happens, tissues become congested. Inflammatory compounds linger longer than they should. Fluid accumulates, and the surrounding tissues become less responsive. Castor oil has a long history of being used to support lymphatic drainage. When applied with gentle massage, it helps mobilize stagnant lymph, encouraging the body to clear accumulated waste and restore healthier tissue conditions. This is one reason some men notice a sense of lightness, warmth, or improved comfort in the area within the first few weeks of consistent use. As congestion clears, circulation improves. As circulation improves, tissue response becomes more reliable. Many men who experience minor discomfort, tightness, or reduced flexibility in the genital region notice these issues gradually ease as tissue health improves. This doesn't mean castor oil replaces medical care. Persistent pain or concerning symptoms should always be evaluated by a urologist. But for many benign, age-related changes, improving lymphatic flow can make a meaningful difference. And once tissues are less congested, the nervous system can do its job more effectively, which directly impacts sensitivity. That's the next piece to understand. Sensitivity is not just about desire, it's about nerve health, blood flow, and the condition of the surrounding tissue. The nerves responsible for sensation rely on adequate circulation and a low inflammation environment to function properly. When tissues are congested, inflamed, or poorly supplied with blood, nerve signaling becomes dull and inconsistent. That's why many men describe a gradual loss of sensitivity, not sudden, not dramatic, but enough to affect enjoyment and confidence. Castor oil supports sensitivity in two important ways. First, by improving circulation, it helps deliver oxygen and nutrients that nerves need to transmit signals efficiently. Second, by reducing inflammation and tissue tension around those nerves, it removes physical interference that can blunt sensation over time. As tissue health improves, nerve responsiveness often improves as well. Many men report that sensations feel clearer, more defined, and more present after several weeks of consistent use. Not because anything artificial is being stimulated, but because normal signaling is being restored. There's also an important psychological component here. When sensitivity improves, anxiety around performance often decreases. When anxiety drops, the nervous system shifts into a more relaxed state, which further supports circulation and response. This creates a positive feedback loop. Better tissue health leads to better sensation. Better sensation leads to more confidence. And confidence allows the body to function more naturally. Now that you understand what castor oil supports internally, it's time to talk about how to use it properly, because quality, timing, and consistency matter. That's where we'll go next. Gentlemen, this is the part most men are quietly curious about. What actually changes when castor oil is used consistently over time? Not theories, not promises, but real patterns I've seen repeatedly in practice. The first thing most men notice is comfort. Within the first 1 to 2 weeks, many report that the area simply feels different, less tight, less congested, more relaxed. That's not coincidence. It's circulation improving and lymphatic congestion beginning to clear. As inflammation settles, tissues become more responsive. Blood moves more freely. Nerve signaling improves. The second phase usually shows up between weeks 3 and 6. This is when men often notice improved sensitivity, fuller response, better consistency, stronger morning erections, not every day, not perfectly, but enough to know something is changing. And that matters because confidence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from reliability returning. By the second month and beyond, the changes tend to stabilize. Tissue quality continues to improve. Circulation becomes more efficient. The body starts responding faster, with less effort. Many men tell me this is when they stop checking or worrying because the system feels familiar again. Now, I want to be very clear about something important. Castor oil doesn't force performance. It restores conditions. And when circulation, tissue health, and nerve signaling improve together, the body does what it already knows how to do. This is also the point where many men realize something deeper. What they were experiencing wasn't failure. It was a system asking for support. And this is where I want to briefly mention something I created specifically for men in this stage. If you're someone who prefers a clear framework, not just a single technique, I've put together a guide called the All-in-One Men's Vitality and Intimacy Blueprint. It brings together the same principles we're talking about here: circulation, inflammation, hormones, sleep, nutrition, and intimacy, into a simple, step-by-step structure. It's designed for men over 50 who want results that last, not quick fixes that come and go. You'll find it linked in the description and pinned comment if you'd like to explore it. No pressure, just a next step for men who want clarity. Before we wrap up, I also want to address something many of you ask me once you start taking this seriously: which natural supplements actually make sense for men's health? After reviewing the research and what consistently works in practice, I focus on 4 essentials: one for circulation and erections, one for stamina and performance, one for healthy testosterone balance, and one for prostate comfort. They're all science-backed and designed to work together, not compete with each other. I've linked them below as well for those who want additional support. And remember, this channel is a safe space. If this video helped you, let me know your age and where you're watching from in the comments. It helps other men realize they're not alone in this. As men age, this isn't the end of vitality. It's a smarter, more informed chapter. I'm Dr. Aria Brooks, and I'll see you in the next